When it comes to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, one of the most exciting parts about these games is that we're gonna be meeting a bunch of brand new, never-before-seen Pokemon. But the question every time a new generation comes around is always, how many new Pokemon will we get? In recent generations, we haven't got as many as we were used to in previous years, but in today's video, I am going to be discussing why Pokemon Scarlet and Violet might just buck that trend and introduce a ton of new Pokemon. Today's wonderful video on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is brought to you by my Spotify. If you enjoy my videos, consider listening to my Pokemon remixes on Spotify and other music streaming services, because A, it's literally just listening to Pokemon music, which is obviously great, and B, it directly and massively supports the channel right back here on YouTube, so that I can keep making content for you guys and make that content better and better. So consider checking that out if you are able to, and if you already are, thank you so much. And now, on to the video. So, what is it about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet that could bring us a large number of new Pokemon? And what exactly would that large number be? Well, as I mentioned, since Generation 6, Game Freak have introduced a smaller number of new Pokemon in each new generation. In Gens 1 through 5, we never saw less than 100 Pokemon be introduced in any given generation, but in Gens 6 through 8, we have never seen more than 100 be introduced. It's been a complete 180 in terms of what we were used to with new Pokemon, and while there are a lot of reasons why this has been happening, there is a chance that Scarlet and Violet could be more like some of the older generations, and introduce 100 plus Pokemon for the first time in a while, and maybe even have well over 100, as in 120 or 130. The primary reason why, to me, this sounds plausible is because Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are open-world games, and are going to be the first open-world Pokemon games ever. This has been a point of emphasis in the marketing for the games so far, and while we don't know exactly how big the open world will actually be, we can assume that it'll at least be bigger than the total size of Pokemon Legends Arceus, since that game, despite its pretty good size, wasn't even fully open world like Scarlet and Violet will be. So if these games have a pretty good size open world, that's obviously going to require a significant number of Pokemon to populate it, which is why Scarlet and Violet's overall Pokedex could be pretty big too, but I believe it also bodes well for the number of new Pokemon we could see on top of that. Since Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are titles that are beginning a brand new generation, the focus of these games are obviously going to be on the new Pokemon themselves. So while there will be plenty of older Pokemon to discover, new Pokemon are of course going to need to fill up the game, and therefore it wouldn't make much sense to only introduce like 80 new Pokemon for this huge new game, which would make them a lot more sparse within their own native region, which again just doesn't make sense. So to correlate with this larger region size, I believe the number of new Pokemon in this region could also be larger as well, and could at least be over 100, if not 120, 130, or even beyond like I mentioned earlier. However, there is a pretty big wrinkle to all of this that I have yet to talk about. The National Pokedex is currently sitting at 905 Pokemon in total with the new Pokemon introduced in Legends Arceus, meaning that we are nearly to 1,000 total Pokemon, which is a huge deal. Game Freak and the Pokemon Company are likely going to make a big deal about reaching 4 digits worth of Pokemon, whenever that happens. And if we had 100 Pokemon introduced in Scarlet and Violet, we would pass that number. This could potentially go against the idea of a lot of new Pokemon being introduced in Scarlet and Violet, since it has also been mentioned that having Pokemon number 1000 be introduced in Generation 10 instead would be a little more poetic, and at the risk of looking too far ahead into the future, Gen 10 could also line up with Pokemon's 30th anniversary in 2026, which could all come together really well in terms of marketing and the general celebration of that anniversary. Additionally, whoever Pokemon number 1000 ends up being, since Game Freak is likely to acknowledge this milestone, is likely going to be an important Pokemon in some way. So thinking about what Pokemon within the setting of Scarlet and Violet could fit that bill and live up to the hype is another interesting facet in determining whether or not we will hit that milestone in Gen 9, or if it will be saved for Generation 10. So while the stars might align a little better with Pokemon number 1000 being introduced in Generation 10, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet have a secret weapon of their own in terms of making their own case for being able to hit and surpass this number within these games. As I mentioned earlier, this game is making a big deal about being an open world title. When the game was revealed, it was literally the first thing that all of Pokemon's official accounts said about it. So the open world is likely going to be the theme and the focus of these games. And you know what goes absolutely perfectly with advertising an open world Pokemon game? Being able to advertise that there are now 1000 Pokemon to discover and catch. A milestone like having 1000 Pokemon and a milestone like the first open world Pokemon game go together like peanut butter and jelly. And being able to advertise both of these within a single title is practically too perfect to pass up. Especially because Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are looking like the type of games that would be worthy of carrying that pedigree, and the type of games that Game Freak would want to put that pedigree on, since they naturally want to make as big of a deal as possible that these are the first open world Pokemon games ever. Granted, we do need to also consider that due to the National Dex cut, these games aren't going to literally have 1000 Pokemon and every Pokemon that's ever existed within them, but that's not really the point. The point is that if Pokemon number 1000 is introduced in these games as the result of a larger amount of new Pokemon being introduced, the Pokemon Company can market that milestone in and of itself, and since it is the perfect complement to the large open world nature of the game, it would really be a golden opportunity to make these games look as amazing as possible, whether it actually happens or not. Ultimately, I think it makes a lot of sense for Scarlet and Violet to have a larger amount of new Pokemon than in years past, simply due to the overall size of the games, and I think that gives us a real solid shot at getting 100 plus new Pokemon for the first time since Generation 5. But there are a lot of other elements to this that can factor in as well, so we'll just have to wait and see. What do you guys think about all this though? Do you feel like we could see a lot of new Pokemon, or will the number be similar to recent generations? And what do you think Pokemon number 1000 is going to be like if we end up getting it in this generation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new for more Pokemon content all the time. With that said, I'll be back with another new video very soon, and until then, as always, thank you all so much for watching this one, I love you all very much, and I will smell you guys later.